Hello, dear viewers. Today we're going to be talking about a country outside of South Asia. The country we'll talk about today is Germany and their policy with regards to Ukraine, and my opinion as to whether they should continue it or change it. Let's begin. Well, Germany was in the beginning of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Germany was dependent on Russia for oil and gas, and it continued to buy gas and oil from Russia until September when Russia uh, closed off the uh, Nord Stream 1 pipeline, well, and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was being built, getting oil from Russia, and Russia was is still Germany's major oil provider, and so and then after Russia stopped closed down Nord Stream 1, I don't know which country, but maybe but some country or anybody, maybe some individuals, blew up the Nord Stream pipelines, and so they could no longer be used even if Russia were to turn them back on. Now the US accused Russia of doing this, but the and Russia has said that after some time, after a few weeks, when they investigated it, they said that the UK was responsible for it. I don't want to go into the details of that. I just want to uh, talk about how this will impact Germany's energy security. This is not good because Germany now has to get oil from other sources, and the problem is because it's an ally of the US, it can't import oil from countries that the US has sanctioned, such as Iran or Venezuela or now Russia. And so it needs to get oil from countries like the US, Saudi Arabia, etc. And uh, it's much more difficult for them to do that. So, but they are doing that, and that's what I want to talk about. And also how their policy towards Ukraine might be changing. Germany offered Poland the Patriot missile defense system, but Poland demanded that Germany offers the missiles to Ukraine. Uh, Now, Berlin made it clear, however, on Thursday that the Patriot air defense units it offered to Poland are intended for use on NATO territory, countering demands by Warsaw for the system to be sent to Ukraine. These Patriots are part of NATO's integrated air defense, meaning they are intended to be deployed on NATO territory. Any use outside NATO territory would require prior discussions with NATO and their allies. German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht said in Berlin. The Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Blaszczak, I apologize if I'm pronouncing the names incorrectly, he said on Wednesday that he had asked Germany to send the Patriot fire units to Ukraine instead. He said, after further Russian missile attacks, I asked Germany to have the Patriot batteries offered to Poland transferred to Ukraine and deployed at its western border. It's when it was NATO's frontline state during the Cold War, and even then it relied on support from NATO allies. So we can see that Germany does not want to us give actual NATO defense systems to Ukraine without consulting with the rest of NATO. And so Germany says that this is important to prevent an escalation of NATO involvement in the war, but others believe that the Polish government's rebuff was a mistake. The Poland's response was, however, welcomed by Kiev, desperate to protect its airspace, as continued barrages of Russian missiles have knocked out power across the country. Many people within Poland are disagreeing with their decision to tell Germany to send these missile defense systems to Ukraine itself. I also disagree. I don't think that NATO's defense system should be in Ukraine now, because that many NATO soldiers will be working on them, and if they are killed or it even wounded, hopefully that never happens. But if that does happen, then that could be considered an attack on a NATO country itself, and might require NATO not to immediately uh, start invoking Article 5, but to slowly get up the aggression against Russia. Now, let's see how the Western sanctions against Russia, are affecting Germany's economy. Last quarter, in the third quarter, the German economy grew slightly more than suggested by preliminary figures. It expanded by 0.4% quarter on quarter and 1.3% on the year. Analysts polled by Reuters had expected the economy to grow by 0.3% on the previous 3 months and by 1.2% annually. So this shows that its economy isn't being affected as badly as it was expected, but it's still suffering. And here we can see how uh, its GDP was positive for most of 2021, except for a dip in the beginning, and it did rise in the beginning of 2022, but then in the se- uh, first quarter of 2022, it was almost nil, and slowly increased in the succeeding 2 quarters. So we can see that it's not yet in recession, but the economy is growing very slowly. If it continues growing at this pace, will Germany be able to produce enough? So, what should Germany do? Should it continue sanctioning Russia and sending weapons to Ukraine? Or should it uh, lift some of these sanctions and reduce the weapons it's giving to Ukraine? If you had asked me in the beginning of this war, I would have said that Germany should not get involved, because Ukraine is not an ally of Germany. Germany is not, as far as I know, internationally legally bound to protect Ukraine from any aggression. But, and so that it should not have sanctioned Russia or sent weapons to Ukraine. But because it's part of NATO, and NATO is so deeply involved in Ukraine, it was pressurized by other countries, specifically the United States, to sanction Russia. And we can see the results of this. Their economy has slowed down, price increase has happened, and gas prices have increased as well. So the people are suffering, and with the destruction of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, Germany's energy security has suffered. Although they have developed other sources, but they still are in the process of building all the refinement factories, and they're also trying to transition to green energy. And I think that this is the main problem for Germany, that the ruling party is allied with the Green Party, which, excuse me, wants Germany to stop using fossil fuels, like every other Green Party in the world. And that's just not necessary. And I it's not going to help the climate. The climate is not as bad as people say it is. The alarmism is exaggerated. This is not my words, these are the words of several other scientists who have, climate scientists who have spoken against the main narrative. Unfortunately, they have been sidelined and ignored by mainstream science, which, as somebody who has studied science in plus two, I find very disappointing. Science should be completely objective. So, yeah, yeah, Germany should not try to transition to a total green energy reliant country. What it should do is allow the free market to dictate what energy becomes the most profitable. This it should do by removing subsidies towards fossil fuel companies, renewable energy companies, and allow the free market to work, because otherwise whatever it does, it will create an artificial demand and impose an artificial supply on the German people, which won't help them. Of course, this decision to end subsidies must be done carefully and prudently, not suddenly. So, yeah. Uh, and as far as so right now, I think that Germany should uh, I think that they should stop sending weapons to Ukraine, but should send humanitarian relief to them. But and they should lift the some of the sanctions against Russia, not all. That would be not possible right now. The U.S. would become very angry if they did that, and but somewhere they can lift some sanctions. They should, and they should slowly begin extricating themselves from the conflict. I don't know how they can do that. It's going to be very difficult, but they have to find a way. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. If I hope you like that video. If you want to see other videos about countries outside of South Asia, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I use for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Vande Mataram.